Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be taking a look at something I think you're going to find pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
The connection between mindfulness and gardening.
hmm
And, based on the sources that you sent over, it looks like you've got a lot of interest in this, and we've got a really interesting mix of stuff to cover.
Yeah, we do. We've got some practical advice. We've got some scientific studies, even some personal stories.
Yeah, a lot of
Right.
really rich stuff here. So this is going to be a really great deep dive, I think.
It is. And I think it's really interesting because these days, it seems like everybody's looking for practical ways to be more mindful,
Mm.
right?
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? Maybe the answer has been in our backyards all along.
I love that.
Yeah.
So to help you kind of apply this to your own life today, we're going to uncover some really amazing things.
Yeah.
Did you know that just being around plants can lower your stress hormones?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. We're also going to look at how gardening can actually be a source of resilience during tough times.
Right.
And we'll see how it can spark creativity and even build stronger communities.
Yeah. And we're not just going to skim the surface either.
Yeah.
We're really going to dig into the science behind all of this, and we'll explore some specific mindfulness techniques that you can actually use while you're out in the garden.
Perfect. So before we, grab our trowels and get our hands dirty, let's start with the basics.
Yeah.
What is mindfulness? And what on earth does it have to do with getting dirt under our fingernails?
Okay, well, mindfulness is often described as paying attention to the present moment without judgment.
Okay.
But it's really more than just being aware of your surroundings. It's
Mm.
about truly inhabiting your experience, noticing your thoughts, your feelings, and sensations without getting swept away by them.
Okay, so how does that translate to the garden? I mean, weeding is not exactly known for being a very calming activity.
Right. But think about what gardening actually involves, right? You're feeling the texture of the soil, you're smelling the herbs, you're listening to the buzz of the bees.
Yeah.
It naturally pulls your attention to the here and now.
And away from that never-ending to-do list.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can see how that shift in focus could really be a stress reliever.
It absolutely is. And in fact, a study that was published in the Journal of Health Psychology found that gardening activities significantly reduce cortisol, which is the stress hormone, in participants, even more so than reading.
Wow.
And there's growing evidence that being in nature has a restorative effect on our brains. It can improve your mood. It can even boost cognitive function.
I've heard of the term ecotherapy before. Is that related?
It absolutely is. Ecotherapy takes the idea of nature's healing power a step further.
Mm.
It suggests that interacting with the natural world, whether it's gardening or forest bathing or just taking a walk in the park, can have profound therapeutic benefits for your mental and physical well-being.
Okay, so there's a clear connection between gardening and mindfulness.
Yeah.
And there's even science to back it up. But what does this mean for, like, the everyday person?
Right.
What are the actual benefits that I could experience?
Well, let's start with the psychological benefits.
Okay.
Gardening has been shown to reduce stress, boost self-esteem, even spark creativity.
Mm-hmm.
It's that sense of accomplishment that you feel when you witness a tiny seed transform into a vibrant plant, or when you manage to revive a wilting herb.
Yeah.
There's a real power in nurturing life, and that can translate into a greater sense of self-efficacy in other areas of your life as well.
I can definitely see that, especially for someone like me who often struggles with feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly. And let's not forget the physical benefits.
Right.
You're out there, you're moving your body, you're getting fresh air and sunshine.
Mm.
It's a natural mood booster, and it's a great way to stay active without feeling like you're exercising.
Yeah.
And if you choose to grow your own food, well, you're reaping the rewards of healthier eating habits, which directly impacts your energy levels and mental clarity.
Right. It's a win-win all around.
Exactly.
Speaking of mental clarity, one of our sources mentioned this fascinating concept called the flow state. Something about gardeners losing track of time and feeling completely absorbed in the task at hand.
That's right. Flow state is a psychological term for that feeling of being fully immersed in an activity where your skills are perfectly matched to the challenge at hand. You're so focused that everything else just fades away.
Right.
Time seems to disappear, and you experience a profound sense of satisfaction and joy.
I've definitely felt that when I'm writing, but I never considered that gardening could elicit the same response.
It's actually quite common.
Really?
Think about it. You're working with your hands, you're problem solving, you're engaging all of your senses.
Right.
And the results are tangible and rewarding.
Yeah.
It's a perfect recipe for flow.
And our sources were packed with real-life stories of how gardening has been this transformative force for individuals and communities.
Absolutely.
There was that inspiring story about the community garden that flourished in a low-income neighborhood.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And it wasn't just about growing food, it was about creating a safe space for people to connect, to learn new skills, and to find a sense of belonging.
Yes.
And residents reported feeling less anxious and isolated,
Right.
proving that the benefits of gardening go far beyond just the individual.
It really does.
That's incredible. There was another story that really stood out to me about a woman who discovered gardening during a particularly difficult period in her life. And she described it as her anchor, a way to ground herself and find solace amidst the chaos.
Yeah.
It just goes to show the power of nature to heal and restore.
It's true. Those stories really highlight the transformative potential of gardening.
Yeah.
It's not just about plants. It's about cultivating mindfulness, resilience, and a deeper connection to ourselves and our communities.
Okay, I'm convinced. I'm ready to create my own mindful garden.
Right.
But before we move on to the practical tips you mentioned earlier, that being in nature is beneficial,
Yeah.
but what if I live in a city apartment with limited outdoor space? Can I still experience these benefits?
That's a great question. And the answer is a resounding yes. You absolutely can create a mindful garden no matter your space limitations. Remember, mindfulness is about paying attention to the present moment, and that can happen anywhere.
That's reassuring to hear. But where do I even begin? Like, my balcony is pretty small, and I'm not sure I have the time for, like, a full-fledged garden.
I hear you. But that's the beauty of mindful gardening.
Yeah.
It's adaptable to your life, not the other way around.
Okay.
Even just a few potted plants can make a world of difference.
So how do I make the most of my limited space?
Well, first consider sunlight.
Okay.
Most plants need at least a few hours of direct sunlight each day. So, observe your balcony throughout the day and see where the sun hits. And you mentioned in your notes that you're especially drawn to herbs.
Right.
And luckily, many herbs thrive in sunny conditions.
That's true. I love the idea of having fresh herbs right outside my kitchen window.
It's both practical and therapeutic. And don't forget about vertical space. You can use shelves, hanging planters, even a trellis to maximize your growing area.
Right.
Imagine a wall of fragrant herbs just cascading down your balcony. It's like a living tapestry.
Okay, I'm starting to get excited about the possibilities.
Right.
But how do I actually make my balcony garden mindful? It's one thing to have plants, but it's another to create a space that truly invites me to slow down and be present.
Right. It's about being intentional with your design choices.
Yeah.
And that starts with engaging all of your senses.
Okay.
We often focus solely on the visual aspect of gardening,
Right.
but incorporating elements that appeal to touch, smell, sound, and even taste can transform your space into this multi-sensory oasis.
That's a fantastic point. I've never thought about gardening in such a holistic way.
Yeah.
Where do I begin?
Well, let's start with scent. Think about fragrant herbs like lavender, rosemary, mint, basil.
Right.
Not only do they smell amazing, but they can also be used in cooking or to create homemade aromatherapy blends.
Sure. I actually have a lavender plant that's been struggling indoors. Maybe moving it to my sunny balcony will give it a new lease on life.
It just might. And when it comes to flowers, consider fragrant options like jasmine, honeysuckle, or sweet peas. These can attract pollinators like bees and butterflies, which adds another layer of life and movement to your space.
I love that idea. It's like creating a mini ecosystem right on my balcony.
It is.
What about incorporating textures?
Think about combining plants with different leaf shapes and textures. You could have smooth succulent leaves next to fuzzy lamb's ear or spiky ornamental grasses.
Oh, okay.
And don't limit yourself to just plants. Adding elements like smooth stones, rough bark mulch, even a piece of driftwood can create visual interest and encourage you to interact with your garden using your sense of touch.
That's so creative. It's like designing an art piece, but with living elements.
Exactly. And what about sound? You can attract birds to your balcony with a small bird feeder or a bird bath.
Yeah.
The sound of birdsong is incredibly soothing, and it's a beautiful reminder of the interconnectedness of nature.
I do love the sound of birds, but I wouldn't want to disturb my neighbors with anything too loud. Are wind chimes a good option for a small space?
They can be. Choose wind chimes with a gentle melodic sound, and hang them in a spot where they'll catch the breeze without being too overwhelming. You could even make your own wind chimes using natural materials like shell stones or bamboo.
That's a fun project. Okay, so I'm starting to get a sense of how to create a sensory-rich space.
Yeah.
But beyond the design elements, are there specific mindfulness techniques that I can use while I'm actually gardening on my balcony?
Of course, we've touched on some of these already, but let's dive in deeper.
Oh,
One of the simplest and most effective techniques is mindful breathing.
okay.
Before you even start gardening, take a few moments to just stand or sit in your space and focus on your breath.
Mm-hmm.
Inhale deeply through your nose, filling your lungs completely.
Mm-hmm.
Hold your breath for a count of 4, and then exhale slowly through your mouth, releasing any tension. Repeat this cycle a few times, bringing your attention to the sensations of your breath.
I can see how that would help me shift gears and leave the stresses of the day behind.
Exactly. It's a simple way to ground yourself in the present moment.
Yeah.
And you can continue to use your breath as an anchor throughout your entire gardening practice.
So I can be mindful while I'm watering, weeding, even just admiring my plants.
Precisely.
Mm.
As you're watering your plants, for example, pay attention to the sound of the water, the feel of the water on your hands, the way that the soil absorbs the moisture.
Wow, I never thought about paying such close attention to watering.
It's amazing how much we miss when we rush through tasks mindlessly. But when we slow down and engage our senses, even mundane activities can become mindful moments.
What about weeding? That's one task I usually dread. Is there a way to make weeding more mindful?
There is. Remember that story about the woman who found solace in gardening during a tough time?
Yes.
She actually said that weeding became her meditation.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
She approached it with a sense of curiosity and acceptance. As she pulled each weed, she'd noticed the sensations in her hands, the feel of the roots coming out of the ground, the connection she had to the earth.
Mm-hmm.
She'd even take a moment to appreciate the weed before discarding it, acknowledging its role in the ecosystem.
That's such a beautiful way to look at it. I usually just see weeds as invaders, but I love the idea of seeing them as part of a larger interconnected web.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by shifting your perspective, you can transform a mundane task into a mindful practice.
What about harvesting?
Mhm.
Is there a way to be more mindful when I'm picking herbs or vegetables from my balcony garden?
Absolutely. Harvesting is a wonderful opportunity to practice gratitude.
Okay.
As you pick each sprig of basil or tomato, take a moment to appreciate the plant's journey, the nourishment it provides, and the effort that you put into growing it.
Yeah.
You can even express your gratitude out loud or silently in your mind. It's a powerful way to connect with the abundance that nature offers.
I love that idea. It's so easy to take fresh food for granted, especially when we buy it from the store. But when you grow your own food, even on a small scale, you develop a much deeper appreciation for where it comes from and the work that goes into producing it.
It's true. And you're also more likely to savor each bite, which is another aspect of mindful eating.
Speaking of mindful eating, one of our sources talked about keeping a nature journal.
Yes.
Is that something I could do on my balcony garden?
A nature journal is a great way to deepen your connection with nature and track your observations and reflections.
Okay.
You can write about the plants you're growing, the changes that you observe, any thoughts or feelings that come up.
Yeah.
It's also a great way to document your gardening journey, so you can look back and see how far you've come.
I love that idea. It's a reminder that even in a small space, there's always something new to discover and learn.
There is.
And I have a feeling my nature journal will be filled with sketches of the birds visiting my feeder and the bees buzzing around my herbs.
I bet it will be beautiful. And remember, your nature journal doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could be a simple notebook, a sketchbook, or even just loose sheets of paper. The most important thing is to make it your own and use it as a tool for self-reflection and connection.
So before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, is there anything else I should keep in mind as I start designing and creating my mindful balcony garden?
I think the most important thing is to just approach it with a sense of playfulness and experimentation.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to try new things, move plants around, and just see what works best for you in your space.
Okay.
And remember, there's no right or wrong way to create a mindful garden. It's all about creating a space that feels good to you and invites you to slow down, connect with nature, and nurture your well-being.
Perfect. Well, we'll be right back after a short break, and then we'll continue our deep dive into mindfulness and gardening, and we'll talk about some tips and tricks for creating a thriving, mindful garden no matter where you live.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking about the personal benefits of mindful gardening, and there are so many, from stress reduction to even sparking creativity. But One of the sources that you shared really emphasized the social impact of gardening, and I'm
Hmm.
excited to kind of dig into that a little bit.
Me too. It's
Yeah.
true. Gardening has this amazing ability to connect us to something larger than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that can extend far beyond our own balconies or backyards.
We touched on community gardens briefly,
Yes.
but let's delve a little deeper. What
Yeah.
makes them such special places?
Well, community gardens are more than just shared plots of land. You know,
Right.
they're really vibrant hubs that foster a sense of belonging, shared purpose, and connection to the natural world.
Yeah.
They can be really powerful catalysts for community building and positive social change.
One of the sources highlighted a community garden in Detroit that's doing really incredible work.
Oh, yes, the Michigan Urban Farming Initiative.
Yeah.
It's a shining example of how community gardens can address social issues and create opportunities for residents in underserved neighborhoods.
Mm-hmm.
They've transformed a blighted area into a thriving urban farm, providing fresh produce educational programs and even job training.
It's amazing how they've kind of woven food security, environmental sustainability, and community empowerment into a single initiative.
It's truly inspiring. And this idea of food security is really central to a lot of community gardens.
Yeah.
They can provide access to fresh, healthy food, particularly in areas where grocery stores are scarce or where affordable produce is limited.
So community gardens aren't just about growing vegetables. They're about addressing systemic issues like food deserts
Right.
and empowering communities to really take control of their food systems.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just providing food.
Hmm.
Many community gardens offer educational programs on nutrition cooking and sustainable gardening techniques.
Right.
They empower individuals and families to make healthier choices for themselves and become active participants in their local food webs.
It's like a ripple effect. From growing food to learning about nutrition to sharing that knowledge with others.
It really is.
Yeah.
And while food security is a crucial aspect, community gardens also offer a profound sense of belonging and social connection.
Right.
They bring people together from all walks of life, fostering a sense of community and shared purpose.
There was that heartwarming story about a community garden in San Francisco that became a refuge for a group of senior citizens.
Yes, I remember that one.
It started as a way for them to stay active and engaged, but it blossomed into so much more. They formed strong friendships, they shared their gardening knowledge with younger generations, and they even started a program to deliver fresh produce to homebound seniors in their neighborhood.
That's beautiful. It kind of reminds me of the Japanese concept of moe, which refers to social support groups that provide a sense of belonging and purpose, especially for older adults.
That's a great connection. And this social aspect of community gardens can be incredibly therapeutic, particularly for individuals who are struggling with loneliness or isolation or mental health challenges. There's something incredibly grounding and healing about working side by side with others, nurturing life, and witnessing the fruits of your collective labor.
It's like a form of social therapy, but with the added bonus of fresh air, sunshine, and delicious homegrown produce.
Exactly. And while community gardens are fantastic, there are other ways to connect with others through gardening, even if you don't have access to a communal space.
Right.
You mentioned in your notes that you're eager to connect with like-minded individuals. Have you considered joining a local gardening club or an online forum?
Those are great ideas.
I hadn't thought about that, but it's a fantastic idea. I love the idea of swapping seeds, sharing tips, and learning from more experienced gardeners.
It's a great way to expand your knowledge, find inspiration, and build relationships with people who share your passion.
Mm-hmm.
And you could even organize a seed swap or a plant exchange with your neighbors.
That would be so much fun. I could picture us setting up tables in the courtyard and sharing our gardening bounty.
And who knows? It might even inspire others to start their own little gardens. You could create this ripple effect of green thumbs throughout your building.
I love that image. It's a reminder that even small actions can have a big impact. And speaking of impact, one of the sources you shared highlighted organizations that are using gardening to address social and environmental challenges on a much larger scale.
Yes, there are so many incredible initiatives happening all around the world. One that comes to mind is the Ron Finley Project, which focuses on transforming food deserts in South Central Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
They empower residents to reclaim vacant lots and turn them into vibrant community gardens, increasing access to healthy food and fostering a sense of community ownership and pride.
And I was particularly moved by the story of Growing Power, an organization in Milwaukee that uses urban farming to create jobs, provide healthy food, and promote environmental sustainability in an underserved community.
Yes.
They've even developed these innovative aquaponic systems to raise fish and grow vegetables in a symbiotic loop. demonstrating that sustainable solutions can also be beautiful and inspiring.
Those stories really showcase the transformative power of gardening to address complex social and environmental issues.
Yeah.
They demonstrate that by connecting with nature and working together, we can create a more just equitable and sustainable world.
It's incredibly inspiring. So as we wrap up our deep dive into mindfulness and gardening,
Yes.
what are some key takeaways that you want our listener to remember?
Well, I think the most important takeaway is that gardening is so much more than just a hobby. It's a multifaceted practice that can enrich our lives on so many levels.
Right.
It's a pathway to mindfulness, a source of resilience, a spark for creativity, and a powerful tool for connecting with ourselves, our communities, and the natural world.
And it's accessible to everyone, no matter your living situation or your experience level. Whether you have a sprawling backyard, a sunny balcony, or just a few pots on a windowsill, you can experience the transformative benefits of gardening.
Absolutely. Remember, the most beautiful gardens are often the ones that bloom a little differently than we expect. Embrace the unexpected, enjoy the journey, and never underestimate the power of a single seed.
What a beautiful way to end our deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of mindfulness and gardening. We
Hmm.
hope you feel inspired to get your hands dirty, connect with nature, and cultivate a little more peace and joy in your life. Happy gardening.